Okay, hello, I am Synova Cantrell. I am Southwest Missouri's #1 true crime writer and victims advocate. I do some public speaking every once in a while. Usually I'm a little more prepared. Like I got to go to the Capitol last year and I was a little more prepared for that. So my apologies. So I met, what is his spare name again? I want to call you something else because your name's spelled different. And I was like, I want to make you sound French. So, hello, Jeanne. Nice to meet you. So she met me at a event that was hotter than heck. That was another one. She always comes to these outdoor events. That's 100 and something. There was a heat advisory that day. It was 104 with no trees anywhere. My daughter, she was the little drama queen. I'm like, suck it up, we gotta go, you know. And my son was supposed to come tear down the booth, and we were so hot and tired. I had it all torn down and in the car before he got there. He's like, what the heck's up? So she met me there, and I don't know what excited her about me, but she decided I needed to come speak to you guys. And so here I am. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I started writing true crime by writing the biography of an ex-gangster from Chicago. His name was Sidney Hurd. He is in this first book here on the table, Unorganized Crime. Now, he had done everything short of murder. He was the Catch Me If You Can book about Frank Abagnale. If you multiply that times 10, that tells you all the con games this man, he got away with. And he got away with all of it. He was the Amarillo arsonist for 25 years. They couldn't get him on enough evidence, so they used that as a bargaining chip to turn him state's evidence. And he worked for the FBI and the DEA undercover for a while. So he was the one that got me, all of the street education on crime and how con men think and operate. And so, but that actually kind of lends into all these years later. Now I'm working on a series of cults, and I can see the manipulation and the tools and how people read crowds and how they manipulate crowds. And I will not manipulate you. Promise. Yeah, no, fingers crossed. But the thing with it is when I wrote that book, I realized real quick that it takes a while to write another book, and you got to keep your audience hot in between times. So I started writing a blog, and that's where I got into the world of victims advocacy, because there are hundreds and hundreds of mothers that go to bed every night that don't have answers on where their child is. There are husbands that don't know what happened to the wives. There's wives that don't know what happened to their kids and their husbands and their aunts and their uncles and their grandmas. They have no idea. And in the state of Missouri, as of right now, we have 1,600 missing persons cases active right now. That's not the ones that have just gone cold and gotten off the books, because there's no way to do anything with them anymore. 1,600 active cold cases in the state of Missouri. And we want to think that Missouri is a safe place. We want to think that Missouri, this is a wholesome place that we can raise our kids in. Well, I contend that it can be, but we all have to work together to make it that way. And so I started using my blog to raise awareness about cases that kind of stopped being talked about. And I learned real fast that there is a big gap between the victims' families, the police officers who are trying to help, and the media. The media will help you at the beginning while it's a big news story. They will help you again on the 10th anniversary. They'll help you again on the 20th anniversary. In between times, you're on your own. I had one victim's family member who, her dad was a Vietnam veteran who had survived Vietnam and immediately came back. And after retiring from the military, he went into service working at a local hospital for veterans. And he spent his whole life in service, in volunteer work, everything. After he retired, he went into volunteer at the same hospital. He was stabbed to death and left on the side of the road. And this daughter had spent 15 years trying to figure out what happened. And she contacted the local newspaper. She lived out of state. And if you live out of state, you're just at a disadvantage. She lived out of state, so she called the local newspaper. The local newspaper, it had been 19 years. The local newspaper said, I'm sorry, it's not news. Then to make it even worse, to something that really just lights me on fire and ticks me off, something major, was the fact that on the 20th anniversary, that same newspaper called her and asked for a story. And that is what made me realize we've got a problem. You know, our news has gotten to the point where it's just going after clicks and likes and subscribes. I mean, every content creator out there, I need you all to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll tell you right there. No manipulation. I'd like you to subscribe because it helps boost me in the algorithms and it gets these stories out to more people. If the algorithm likes you, they're going to put your story out. It'll be 500 times more people see these people's stories if you guys help me out. You know, so, but this is the problem. The news shouldn't do that. The news should tell us the news. And instead, they are got in the same game. For better or for worse, that's the world that we live in. So we've got to do something to bridge that gap in between. So that's what got me into victims advocacy. So I spent a few years studying marketing, building an online marketing machine to get these stories out to more people. So I bridge the gap between here and between traditional media. I usually can get enough buzz that the traditional media will jump on the bandwagon. I can get directors involved in producing things. I can do all kinds of things to get the traditional people involved. And so that's what my job has been for the last several years. And so I have built that network up to where my potential viewership now is 2.2 million. So I can get it. I have 38 different platforms because I was raised by a conspiracy theorist hippie. If somebody tears down one platform, I got 37 more. So here's the thing. If you go and look on my YouTube channel, there's about 10,000 people or less. Each one has just a little bit here and a little bit there. So by the time you get through it, if you take down my Facebook, if I get blocked off Facebook because they don't like the BS I say, then I have something else. And so this is where I have been for a few years. I helped solve a lady's cold case out of Georgia. And that kind of changed things up again. I went through and this lady, her dad had been killed by members of the Dixie Mafia, and her crippled brother had been killed by members of the Dixie Mafia. I helped her bring in leads that gave her the answers she needed. And it was old enough then that they couldn't actually take it to court, which kind of devastated her, but she at least had the answers she needed. And so that's what I work for. That's what I do. And so my speech today is actually going to be about cults in America. And the reason why I've gone to that is because of this latest book that I have, Madman or Messiah is the one I have. I'll show it to the camera. Madman or Messiah is my latest book. And I kind of got into that because of my assistant, Miss T back there. It's her fault that I'm here and you guys are having to listen to me. It's her fault. Well, because I'm always looking for cold cases. And the cold case that I was doing a whole series. I've got 33 cases, I think, sitting on my to-do list right now. I have a cold case submission form where people will write in and tell me what case, can you look at my dad's case? Can you look at my brother's case? Whatever. Last time I looked, I have 33. I may have more now. I don't know. I haven't looked in a while. But she brought up a cold case. She's like, well, there was a cult that came through Missouri in the 80s that built the pyramid in St. James. And this guy was just off his rocker and he stole millions of dollars, but there's actually a cold case in the middle of it. Would you be interested? And I'm like, of course, cold cases are my bag. I love this. So, but the idea was this woman had been manipulated and used by this cult leader. And then she was brutally murdered in Denver in 1957. The case was unsolved. Well, he had already moved on to his younger version. He had a habit of bringing in young secretaries for his wives, and then by the time they turned 18, they were perfectly groomed, and he would run off with them. And so he had already done that, and she was going to get divorced, and he wasn't going to let her. She couldn't get away. He could leave her, but she couldn't leave him. And so she ends up getting killed, brutally murdered. The case goes unsolved. It's so cold and so old now, it's not even on Denver's cold case list. You have to go through genealogy reports to even see it. So I looked into this 15 years later when this man is in Missouri. That 18-year-old had kind of grown up and she was getting tired of his BS. She goes to divorce him. he hires a hitman to kill her. And he is run out of the state of Missouri. At the time, he had stolen millions of dollars off of a dying widow. He had assaulted. I have to be careful how I word it because YouTube thinks if you say a word, it's going to create more of it. I say stupidity. He is nearing 80 years old at that time. But this 80-year-old man had assaulted a 14-year-old girl on his compound. And he had hired a hitman for his wife. So he was run out of Missouri, and the headlines in the newspaper, you got to love it. Headlines in the newspaper 2 weeks earlier, man of God, the Messiah, because that's what he said he was, is arrested for assaulting a girl and all these things. And then 2 weeks later, he's out on bail, and God tells him it's time to move out of Missouri. And I'm like, yeah, I think there's probably a dad with a shotgun told you to move out of Missouri. So, but this is the story of this man that's in this book. It's outrageous. All of his tactics are so over the top and obvious. And you think, well, why would you use that? Because the same tactics are used now. They're just cloaked a little different. You know, back in the 1930s, he was raising Cain in Arkansas with the Jonesboro church wars. It got so bad. There was shootouts. There was a murder. Someone tried to assassinate the pastor. And then the troops had to be called in just to calm everything down. He slithered away like a snake, never got in trouble for anything. And so this is something that he continued, and he continued this campaign. He died a month shy of being 90 years old. Nobody ever stopped him. Nothing. He got away with it. And so I use this as a sample example because the con game was the same. He just cloaked it different because things you could get by with things in the 1930s before the internet than you can now. You know, now we like to think we're a little more educated, but the con is still the same. And I know because Sydney was running those same cons, 20 years ago. And so Sydney showed me what these little things are. There's red flags that we can all look for to protect ourselves. Coercive control is all around us. I mean, our advertising agencies, they know what you want and how to give it to you, how to see it, how many times you need to look at it. When I was studying marketing, I found out that you have to show somebody something 12 times, and then they're automatically compelled to look into it if you see it 12 times. I stepped away for a couple of years because I wanted to help these victims even more. So I studied life coaching, behavioral psychology, how the brain works, trauma coaching. I studied all these things because I needed to understand how can you help somebody who's been through so much trauma. And so that's where the Whispers of the Mind book comes in, that's on the table. That's trauma coaching for victims' family members. But the idea is cults are a major problem now. Now, we all think everybody has an idea of what a cult is in their mind. I can tell you, you can just rip that picture up, throw it out, because cults nowadays do not look like that. We think of Jim Jones. I'm working on a series of Jim Jones videos. The last one should be coming out soon on YouTube, where I deep dive into his tactics. Why did he have so many people? How did he kill 918 people out there? How did they get to that point? Who in their right mind would have drunk that Kool-Aid? And so I dig into the psychology of it. So when you watch my videos, they're not just facts and figures. They're not just repeating the news. I dig into some of the reasons behind it. And the idea is I have a 12-year-old girl, and my dad spent his lifetime protecting his little girl. My job is to protect her. To this day, I'm 45 years old. We have a church in a kind of a roughneck area. And if I'm driving by myself, my teenage son's not with me, my almost 80-year-old dad will follow me home, even though I live way out of the way from him. He'll follow me home to make sure I get home. The idea is we need to protect those that we love. And if we can see the red flags, we can protect them and help them understand who they are and how to protect themselves. Because one day she's going to have to protect her own. And so that's where the whole cult in America is. So if you want just true crime, guts, gore, trauma, I'm not the crime writer for you. I'm not the right person because I'm not in it for those things. If you want the gore, you want the gory details, go somewhere else. I see all the gory details. I get the autopsy reports, but I'm not going to be the one that reveals that autopsy report on a YouTube channel because the grandma may not have been able to see that. Now, there's two different types of victims. There's some victims' family members, they need to know every detail. They have to know. But then there's a lot of victims' family members who can't handle that. And it's not my job to distinguish between them. So if you want those kinds of details, kindly go somewhere else. My job is to raise publicity, to support them in any way that I can, and to further their story to where somebody who has the ability to do something can do something. You know, up until this point, I'm not a professional investigator. I am a crime writer who is a massive researcher. And I interview people. People talk to me all the time. They give me information. And then I pass that on to the officials. I am currently working on going through the 500 steps to become a licensed investigator. When that happens, we'll change things up some more. But the idea is, do you want to help these people or do you not? And that's where everything I do comes from. My father is a pastor, a very odd pastor, not usually the normal type of pastor. He tries to reach the fringes of society, those people that maybe don't look the same, those people that maybe are tatted up and aren't welcome in some places. He takes those. He says we need to show God's love to the fringes of society. And so I told my mom when she was trying to explain, you know, I was talking to her earlier, you know, I tell people I write true crime and you get some of those pious people, they're like, oh, like I'm writing some kind of smut, you know, like I am trying to show God's affection to people that people have forgotten about. I'm trying to show compassion to some mother who has cried herself to sleep for 25 years because nobody cares enough to keep talking about her missing child. I'm like, if it's your missing child, you would be talking about it every day until something changes. And so that's what Synova Inc. Publishing is. That's what I do. I make videos, I make blog posts, I write books to fund my charity work with the victims' family members, because I don't charge them anything. I do everything I can. I am working on getting my license so I can start taking some paid jobs so I can help fund my charity work. So this is what I do. So I want to kind of segue into the cults conversation, because I have a whole nice little outline. I want you guys, anybody that's brave enough to say something, I'm not going to be one of those that say you have to respond. Anybody that's brave enough, I want you guys to take a guess on how many cults are in America right now, today. Raise your hand and give me a guess. Go ahead.
230.
Nope.
416.
You're getting there.
1200.
Nope. Nope. You know the answer. My assistant, Miss T, everybody wave at her. Say, hi, Miss T. She knows the answer. I'll tell you. No, you guys aren't even close. Yep. 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 According to some studies, they say that there's anywhere between 5,000 to 10,000 cults in America right now. And what people don't realize is we have this real narrow view of what a cult is. And the problem is with law enforcement, they have a very even more narrow ability to do anything about it. Because the way our laws are set, they're under this umbrella of religious protection. So they have to prove that somebody's done something illegal. They can't do nothing about it. And so this is where we're at. And you have to understand that there's cults that have as few as 20, 30 people. You know, so we're thinking cults, the Jim Jones thing, and we're expecting, that's one of the things that really bugged me about the end of this book. Most authors won't tell you how a book ends. I will tell you how this book ends. The idea with this is, photo op. ADHD moment, there you go. But the idea is we expect a big crescendo at the end of a cult's lifespan. And 90% of them don't do that. You know, we're thinking Waco, you know, we're thinking Jonestown, you know, by the time, this is something that I'll give you a little sneak peek in my last video on Jim Jones. How many of you guys knew that there were 6 cold cases tied to Jim Jones after the Kool-Aid incident? Did you guys know? No. See, so that's going to be that's a tag for my next video coming out. There are 6 people that were tried to speak out after the massacre And Jim Jones's hit squad took them out in their own homes. Those cases are still unsolved. 6 people. So we'll talk about that in the next video. So, but the idea with the ending of this book and what happens in most of these 10,000 cults that we have in America now, they don't end in a crescendo. This man died a month before he turned 90 years old. Nobody stopped him at all. He was still grooming young girls. He was still conning and stealing millions of dollars after people. He was still lying, cheating, stealing, and he still most likely killed Helen in 1957. And so we don't know how dangerous these cults can be. This guy looked like a goofball. Now, I haven't got the picture with me. I couldn't put as many pictures in here as I have. I should have brought my files. Miss T has seen them. One notebook is like 3 inches, another one's like 2. So it's like this much files, just newspaper articles on this guy. Outrageous headlines. And you think, I've got probably 1,500 newspaper articles on this man and the insanity that he was pulling. Why don't we know about him? He died in 1988. That's not that long ago. Or at least I think so. I'm a Gen Xer. That was yesterday. So I tell my kids 1988, they're like, oh my. I was like, yes, if you really want to freak out your grandkids, just tell them you were here before Google. And they'll just die. So I tell them I'm as old. I said, I'm so old, I was here before dinosaurs were dirt. So, but the idea is with cults, you need to understand that they don't look the way we think they do. They are still out there conning and manipulating people. They're still coercing people into doing things they wouldn't normally do. They're still isolating people from those that they love. They're still stealing from people, killing people, destroying people's lives. And so that's why I wrote this book. I wanted to use this man's con games and show people how it affects today. So they say about 3 to 10 million Americans right now are in a cult. And so most of them don't even know. They don't know. Especially when you realize children, when they're born into this lifestyle, they think that's normal. And they don't realize it's a cult. They don't realize that they should have a freedom of choice to do things and not do things. They should have a freedom of choice of who they're with and who touches them and who don't. You know, this is something that somebody outside of this, we know. I mean, that seems like we have our own solidarity. We should be able to say these things. But if you're born into that, you don't know. And so this whole series on YouTube that I've been doing has been kind of into cult psychology and what it is and how we can protect those that we love, because you can't always depend on the police. The police can only do what the law allows them to do. And then if you get a vigilante who tries to do more, then we ostracize them. You know, so you have to be able to protect yourself to a certain degree. And then as soon as you see something that could be criminally negligent or whatever, if you see something, call it out. Call somebody, somebody with a badge, somebody with a gun, somebody that can do something about it. Don't hide it. And if you're not sure, let them decide. They understand the law better than you do. Let them decide. Your job is to call it in. Your job is not to be the vigilante. Your job is to be the person that calls it in, because somebody else can look at it and say, oh, this is definitely what's going on. And they can get people involved to help. So this is one of those things where we need to understand we do still have a responsibility. We have responsibility in helping protect those that we love. So I'm going to give you just a few little red flags for you guys to take home with you and you can think about. And then I'm going to open the floor for questions. Some of the red flags are, and this is something that most people don't think about. The first red flag is very pleasant. It's love bombing. How many of you guys have been in a situation or in a relationship or in a group of people that they just love you to death? They just smother you. Yeah. Then they take that smothering, that love and affection away when you start doing things that's not really in their guidelines. So they love you to death. Oh, but you did something we don't like, so we're going to pull that back. That is coercive control. If you get into a group of people that love bomb you, and you didn't do anything to deserve it, so they're just love bombing you to death, then watch out. Just keep your eyes open. The whole idea is just keep your eyes open. It could be nothing. It could be genuine affection, but keep your eyes open. There is a level of affection that is normal, and then there's a level above that feels so good, especially if you've had a lack of it in your life. And this is the problem. Con men and cult leaders, they target those that have had a lack of it, and they can see it on you. In your body language, how you handle yourself, how you speak, they can see it on you. And then they use it against you. They're going to love you. Oh my gosh, you're the most beautiful thing ever. And yet then they turn around and then they stop telling you that because you kind of irritated them. So they're going to bring it back. So that's coercive control. The next one is fear tactics. How many of you guys have been in a group of people that the leader is constantly telling you that the world's ending tomorrow and you've got to buy this $15,000 crate of food to put somewhere and hope to gosh that the nuke didn't hit your crate of food. I tell people, I was like, the end of the world may be coming. I'm like, my thought on it is, it's called the apocalypse. Look up the definition of apocalypse. You're not going to ramble your way through it. That's just not the way it is. You're not going to dig a deep enough hole. You're not going to ramble your way through it. So if someone's starting to try to con you into buying things, giving up your wealth, something you've worked for 25 years, you don't have no idea how many people are conned out of their life savings. You've got elderly people who are living off that life savings and depending on that life savings, and they have got it stolen from them by a manipulative con man. And so the idea is, if they're asking too much, if they're doing nothing but breeding fear in you, they never have anything positive to say. You're just going to die in the next few days, and you got to give me all your money. So the fear tactics, that's the next red flag. Information control. If somebody is controlling what you listen to, what you hear, what you read, who you talk to, you need to back away from that, because you have a right to hear all of these things. You have a right to hear all of the information. You have a brain in your head that can distinguish what information you choose to keep and what you choose to get out. So this is what you need to understand. Controlling information. Isolation. Their biggest thing is they take you away from your social structure. They take you away. You can't go over there and talk to them. They don't know what they're talking about. We have the truth. We have this secret information. We're above everybody else. I know more. I'm the Messiah. I have this. I have that. You listen to me because I have this ancient wisdom that nobody else has. So why are you even going over there? They don't know. Okay. That's all manipulation, coercive control. Repetition and rituals. A lot of times there's a lot of rituals that you are subjected to that the whole group's doing, so you feel peer pressure to do. But then they do it and it's demeaning. So it kind of makes you feel like, you're a little bit worthless. But everyone's doing it. And they make you repeat that over and over. That's programming your subconscious mind to be submissive, to be submissive. That's where that's all that is. So all of this is reprogramming your subconscious mind to where you are not making your own decisions, they are. And the last one is dependency. If they make you so dependent on them that you don't have an income outside of them, you don't have a thought process outside of them, you don't have a place to stay without them, you depend on them for food, you depend on them for everything, that's a scary red flag you need to look for. So this just gives you a few red flags that we've gone over in the series on cults. And I just like to talk to people about it because I want them to be able to see, because now it may not mean much to you right now, but you go off 2 weeks from now and you find yourself in a little group and these words are going to pop back in your head. You're like, well, that feels kind of like a love bomb. That didn't feel like true affection. That felt like manipulation. And you're going to be able to spot the manipulation just because you've heard it. And the more you hear it, and the more you see it, and the more you study it, the more you'll see it. You have this thing in your brain. I'm going to go all nerd mode on you. Got this thing on the back of your brain. It's about this long, about the size of a pencil. It's called the reticular activating system. I call it the RAS because I get tongue-tied trying to say that over and over and over again. And I've had too much coffee this morning. So, but the RAS, it is your filtration system for your brain, okay? And your brain is processing 11 million bits of information at every given moment in time. Your brain has to figure out what's important, what it dismisses, what it stores in the subconscious. That RAS will tell you what to save and what to throw out. How many of you guys have bought a different vehicle and then you see that vehicle everywhere? Mm-hmm. Yep. That vehicle was still there. You just didn't see it because your brain didn't think it was important. But the moment you got emotionally attached to your car, because you got this new car, you see it everywhere. So the idea is that RAS gets reprogrammed by the cult leader. And that RAS tells you, oh, I can only listen to the cult leader. I can only do this. I can only do that. That reticular activating system, that RAS, is under your control. But the way to reprogram it is through repetition. You know, so the more you hear about these red flags, the more you're going to see those red flags. It's not magic. It's not synchronicity. It is the fact that your RAS, your brain, has said it's more important than others. Now, if you watch Tony Robbins, he does this little trick. He does this little trick, and I'm going to do it too. So this is Tony Robbins, no copyright infringement intended. Everybody look around the room and find everything red. Everybody look around. I'm going to give you a second. It's hotter than Hades up here. Okay, everybody seeing everything red? Okay. All right. Everybody done? Okay. Now I want you to look. I don't look anywhere. I want everybody to tell me everything green in this room.
I'm sure there's a leaf on the road.
Well, her shirt's green. She's sitting right in the middle of you. But you didn't notice that because she was looking for red. Well, that's just a little parlor game trick. But the idea is your RAS was looking for red. And sometimes your RAS will make up something. Well, that's burgundy. I'm going to call it red just so I have more red. You know. So your reticular activating system's always filtering out things. And I told it to do red, and then I was going to trick you and give you another color. And I thought I'd do green because she's obviously right in the middle, and she's got a beautiful green sweater. Yeah, nobody noticed the green sweater. But the idea is you want to stay in control of your own mind. You want to stay in control of your own RAS. You want to stay in control of it yourself. It's not anybody else's right to control yours. And that's the reason why I'm doing this cult. I want you to see the red flags. So you see the red flags when you look out. We're training your RAS right now to see love bombing, to see manipulation, to see those coercive controls. And if I save one person from going down that road, then I've made everything I do is worth it. So that's what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll open the floor to any questions. Go ahead.
About cults,
It's okay.
the missing people.
Yes.
Probably the most question that you have. People ask the three missing women.
I know exactly. She asked me the same thing. I will tell you, I'm very cautious with that case. That case is the reason why I have a P.O. box in another state. I'll stop fanning myself like a drama queen. I'm at that age where I'm always hot. So there's just, I'm like, I'm one hot mama. Oh yeah, bring my hat. Now I'm really hot. I'm really hot now. I'm hated. No, the idea with the Springfield 3, I have had pages and pages of stuff sent to me. They're the reason why I have a P.O. box in another city from where I live. That's just smart business practice in this business. I'm pretty sure I know what happened. I haven't gone publicly and done a big documentary and raised a bunch of BS. And my thought on it is Janice gets her hopes up every time someone comes up with a big boatload of stuff. What I say publicly, ask me privately. I'll give you some more information. Publicly. Yeah, we'll turn this off. Yeah. Publicly, what I say is they need to go back to the basics of police work. Stop all of this sensationalism. Get away from the serial killers. Get away from all the BS. Get away from the devil worship, because that was all that was in the satanic panic era. Get away from all that. Go back to the basics of police work. You start at their inner circle, eliminate them, and then move out. Don't move out till you eliminate that inner circle. And they cannot. There are specific people there that they cannot. And there's a reason why they're there. And if they go back to that, they'll find who did it. Yep. So that's my opinion.
Think it was cult related?
No. No, not at all. No. And it's one of those things where never discount the victim and never discount a suspect because of their age, their gender, their size, what you think they're capable of. And there's some specific people that they have completely discounted in that investigation. If you go back and look at it, you can figure out who I'm talking about. Yeah. Because don't discount them. You know, one person with a gun can do lots of damage. And we see that in all these school shootings right now. You know, and they don't look like, you know, they look like teenage kids. You know, you're like, oh, a teenager can't do that. You know, but I say go back to that file, look at their inner circle, and you can't eliminate them. You can't eliminate all of them. And you'll figure out. And the bad thing is the people in that circle that you can eliminate are in prison for violent crimes against women now. It happened for the last 10 years.
Well, two things. Number one, I guess I watch too much TV, particularly police and crime shows.
Mhm.
But what you're presenting as mind control,
Mhm.
more or less,
Yeah.
is exactly what attempts to do with prostitutes.
It is.
Exactly the same thing.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is about these police shootings and everything. Thomas Jefferson warned us against the press.
Mhm.
You have the freedom of the press, but at the same time, they were expected to tell the truth. That's why there are laws against libel and slander.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You can't tell them.
Right.
If it leads, it leads.
That's it. Yeah, that's the way they are. Well, and nowadays they'll get all these lawsuits against him, but they make so much money off the story that they pay the lawsuits off. I mean, that's how all of those junk magazines, when I was a kid, it was all the junk magazines, they were getting lawsuits all the time, but they made so much money off that trash magazine at the checkout of the grocery store, they just write them off. They just write them off. And that's the whole thing, you know. And the coercive control is the same thing with the human trafficking issue, with all of it. The human trafficking issue, I think, you know, it's over dramatized in the media. It doesn't, again, like cults, it doesn't look the way, you know, you're thinking a semi-trailer load full of little girls in white dresses, you know, and they're out in some big warehouse being shoved onto airplanes. That's not the way it looks. That's not the way it looks. And I'll tell you, the number one source in my study, and I am nobody, I can just tell you I have researched and written about 500 cases over the last 10 years. So I'm nobody. But I will tell you, in my study, the number one source for the human trafficking issue is our DFS system. These kids are aged out of the system. They have no home, they have no job, they have no life skills, they have no education. They're on the streets and they're immediately put into the sex trade, or they're put into some kind of trafficking situation. So if we could fix the one, we could stem off the tide on this other one, because I think it's just breeding into the other. Because kids, you know, once you turn 18 in the system, you don't have no place to go.
Well, part of the problem with the DFS system is, I don't think they care enough, number one. And number two, once they're out of the system, you can follow them.
No, there isn't. Well, and like I tell people, we have halfway houses and programs for our prisoners and our inmates. We should have the same thing for our children. We should have more for our children. You know, you have somebody who's made some mistakes in their life, and they have now got the label criminal. We're going to do what we can to try to reform them if we can, and try to give them all these steps and these programs and these things to get them pushed on, maybe enter them into society. We don't do that with our children. And so, but that is, my opinion of where most of the human trafficking comes from, because the children are just dumped. And they will do whatever they need to survive.
Would you say that all, many churches are prone to become cults, even though they don't have that sensationalism or they don't do anything in the end? like burn down buildings or drink the Kool-Aid, but yet they are taking people in a mega building and they're telling them things. They're considered a cult, but are
Well,
they?
no, yes and no. I'll tell you, there are three things. Let me see. I think I have it written down here. So I'm just going to make sure I got my three things right. I don't see it. There are three things that separate a religious group from a cult. Three things that classify as a cult. One is you have the coercive control. Two, you have one charismatic leader at the top that can't be questioned. And then three, you have the manipulation and exploitation of those below. So churches have this, the problem that I have here is you got freedom of religion, but you've got churches who are ripe picking grounds for manipulative con men who put on a facade as a holy person and take things over. So it's one of those things that I wouldn't say every large organization is, but I will say that there are red flags that you need to watch for even in there. Because if there's somebody at the top taking advantage of the person at the bottom, you can't question the person at the top. And then you are not allowed to leave. You have to stay. They're right, everyone else is wrong. All of these red flags, if you see those, you need to get out. Because this man here said he was the Messiah. He was the reincarnated Son of God. And since he was reincarnated, he'd done all the innocent stuff the first time around. So he could drink and party and smoke and do drugs and sleep with 15 people at the same time. And your wife, because he was the Messiah, so he had a right to her too. He didn't have to do any holier than thou stuff this time around. And people fell for it. You know? And the thing is it's always so slow. You know, I'm going to get you in my cult. I'm going to love bomb you, make you feel like the most important, beautiful woman in the world. And then I'm going to slowly start manipulating you and making you maybe do some little something you're not interested in, but you do it anyways. And then I'm going to find more. And the more I can push you into doing, I'm going to get everyone in the room to bully you into submission. And then I'm going to keep on until I have something to blackmail you with. This guy, he was really good at that. He would get you to do something that's kind of in the gray area, and then he'd blow it out of proportion and tell everybody. You know, Jim Jones got his housing authority. He was part of the housing authority. He got so many political connections through that. There was a big vote that he brought out 1,000 people to help vote. And of course, there was voter fraud involved and things. But what he did was to celebrate this man's victory. This was a good man. He wasn't married or anything. He was just a single man. He was a good man. He helped him get in. Then he brought him a girl. He didn't tell that girl. That girl looked older than she was. That girl seemed to be willing participant. Got all the evidence they needed. He told her she was 16 years old. So then he could get that law person, that official political person, to do whatever he wanted him to do, because he had put this man in a situation and then turned on him and used it as blackmail. And so this is the thing. If somebody is trying to push you into doing something that's in that gray area, it's in a gray area, step out of it. Don't do it. It may be okay because it's just a gray area, but if they're willing to push you past your boundary, then they're willing to push you again, and they'll just keep pushing that boundary out.
Would that, these people that believe in multiple lives, is that fall into this category?
There's a lot of coercive control in those. But again, it's something as there's somebody at the top taking advantage of somebody at the bottom, and you can't question it. Or is there a unit? Because some of these cults have a group, like a panel that you can't question. The idea is if they're being held against their will, if they're doing, being pushed into things they don't want to do, it's always in a shady area, and you've got to watch it. Now, there was a cult that just exploded all over Hollywood that was called the NXIVM cult. That didn't look anything like a cult at the beginning. It was a personal development seminar. And these were highly intelligent, highly motivated, successful business people who got sucked into it. So they just think, oh, well, I'm smart enough. I'm not gonna do that. Well, it can happen to anybody. And the only thing that could save them is if they had seen the red flags ahead of time, you know, and they didn't. And so now you've got women who have been branded by that man. They, you know, they're like, well, I thought I was an intelligent human being. You know, you hear some of those statements, and it just tears your heart out. They're like, I wouldn't have done this normally.
Now, wasn't the woman actually like branding them? Wasn't she a Hollywood star?
Mhm. Yeah. Yep, she was. Yeah. And she was, and the thing with it is she was just a lackey for another woman. So, you know, and see, that is something that was very manipulative. He knew if he physically branded another woman, that they'd back off of that. So he coerced another woman to give safety to this woman. So see, all of that is a manipulation con game. He had this harem of women that worked for him to manipulate other women into, you know, I tell people, don't stop by the road if you see a woman and a baby carrier. Don't stop. There's somebody there. That's a tag team right there. You know, don't stop. Yeah, it goes against everything you think of. You know, I have, my car is a pile of crap right now, and I need to get another one. So every little bit, the stupid thing comes on the dash. I have to pull over and unplug the battery cable and put it back in and fix it. Not one time did anybody ever see me on the side of the road, stop and ask me if I needed help. And I was like, well, I guess I'm past my. I was like, screw this. But then I'm like, would I wanted help from anybody? No. I had a wrench in my hand. I knew what to do. And so everybody could tell that I didn't actually need help. You know, a wrench. Exactly. Well, it's only this big because I have to fit it in my pants. I could figure out something. Okay.
What you've been talking about manipulating people and making business guys suck them on. So Jeffrey Epstein sounds like a devil.
Oh yeah. And I've been asked if Jeffrey Epstein was a cult leader, and I say no, because he was a puppet for somebody else. Yeah. There was a lot of, yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. That's, no. No, I don't either. Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. You're playing with the snake long enough, it's going to come back and bite you.
That's also like all the people dying who built.
I have a book on the Dixie Mafia. I didn't bring it with me. It's on Amazon though. Yep. We don't say the big C.
I just had a question about a church, and I use church loosely, and I do believe their daughter may, or granddaughter may have written a book about her experience there, but it was the Westboro Church in Topeka, Kansas. Is that a cult? Because they literally, I lived there, they stood on street corners with hideous signs. Yeah. I mean, there was no hideous things. But were they a cult? I mean,
there's a lot of cult-like, there's a lot of cult-like behavior there. But there's not one individual over it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, see, and this is the thing, when it comes to churches, there's a few key characteristics that you have to make the guidelines. There's a lot of manipulation, a lot of control, a lot of con games out there. Our advertising, is technically con games and manipulation. You know, who would actually spend that kind of money on something, on a device that you could spend a third the amount of money on? You buy the brand, you know. So the whole idea is it's out there everywhere, you know. So when it comes to religious institutions, it's one of those, and that's where the law enforcement's at too. They're like, we have freedom of religion in this country, so there's a line there, you know. But if you're in a place that they're taking advantage of people, and you see it, you need to question not question your faith or your, the idea is faith is supposed to be a one-on-one individual thing between you and your creator. You don't actually need all the organization stuff. All of that's man-made. So if you get in the book yourself and establish that one-on-one relationship, you're not as easy manipulated into the structure and society of harmful things. And that's the, and I'm telling you, I'm a preacher's kid. That's where I feel like you've got to be careful when it comes to those things. It's up to you to establish what you believe in here. You have the solidarity within yourself to figure that out. And you don't need another human to tell you how to do that. All right, great.
I have a question.
Sure.
When, of course, as a parent or a grandparent, and you see children getting in with the wrong crowd and all of that,
Mhm.
how do you suggest handling that, rather than with authority to say, no, you don't need to see those people, or that's a bad thing, or I don't agree with what's going on, or where you're going, or who you're with, that kind of thing. As a parent, that's a big thing, because kids are having to make choices that they're probably not ready to make.
Absolutely. And this is, again, I've studied psychology. I do have a certification as a life coach, but I'm not a medical doctor. So I can't tell you, but I will tell you the idea is you need to know the personality type of the child. Now, if they are anti-authority and they're very rebellious, and in that situation, hitting them hard and upfront is the worst way you can do it. So you need to find out what that child's personality style is and manipulate what you're going to say to the best possible way with that child. Because if you come in, guns a-blazing, head on, a rebellious child, it's going to push them farther. So the idea is you need to know your child. And two, it's best if you can build up that relationship over time. So if you have a good relationship over time where your child feels like they can talk to you, get it to the point where they have the love and affection that they need to where they don't have to go outside for it. Because a lot of these groups, they don't feel included, they don't feel the acceptance, they don't feel the love and acceptance that they need. And so they go outside. I figured it up. 90% of Jim Jones's audience and his crowd that ended up dead in Guyana, 90% of them came from some sort of holiness movement within a church. They didn't fit the stereotypical box and they were ostracized from their church. Jim Jones is like, I will love bomb you over here. We'll take you. You don't have to fit in the mold. And by doing that, 90% of his people just didn't get the acceptance and love they needed. So the snake gave it to them. And so it's like kind of the same concept, also kind of analyze the group they're getting into. What does that group provide them that they don't have at home? See if you can provide it in a healthy manner, so it's a case by case thing, but most people join into those things. A human being doesn't join a group for no reason. That group validates a certain piece that's missing within them. So if you figure out what that piece is, then you can work on that. Does that answer your question?
Talk about here, about kids, what do you do if rebellious or whatever? Now you get to think about some of the weird states in the Northeast, the Northwest, in California. The parents don't have control. The kid under 18 go get a sex change,
Yeah.
hormones, and the state is saying, yeah, they're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is weird states.
Yeah. Right.
Weird.
Well, and that gets into politics, which I don't usually get into on my stuff, but I will tell you, they're still going through those procedures to fill a gap in here. And if we as parents and grandparents can fill that gap, they don't need to go through those things.
But a lot of school boards go to school meetings to try to get a lot of good stuff out of the libraries and stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't have no control.
Yeah.
They got the school board that's a bunch of idiots.
Yeah. I understand that. This video is getting banned.
Doesn't they keep getting voted?
I want to, can I mention about, Diane?
Yes, go ahead.
I had a question about that. You said that after the fact, after Jim Jones shot himself. there
He
were-
didn't.
Oh,
He wasn't even man enough
Oh,
to shoot
that's
himself.
right.
He had somebody else do
yeah,
it.
that's right. Because he had two women who
Mhm.
doted on him,
Mhm.
which is just, see, these things boggle my
Yeah,
mind.
he wasn't man enough to drink his own Kool-Aid or to shoot
I
himself.
know.
He had somebody else do it.
Okay, so some of those henchmen, for example, that were at the airport shooting people and carrying on, some of them went back to the States or just carried on. Not everybody killed themselves that was out there. They just went on and continued, or they were just henchmen.
No, there was a shooter. There was a shooter that did survive, but he was arrested. Is the only reason why he survived. He was arrested after the shooting on the airstrip. So he survived. Everyone else that they all died. The henchmen died.
Okay.
There was a few kids that had traveled to another city to play ball because they had made their own ball team. Those kids survived. One of his sons actually stopped a phone call to San Francisco. People don't know this, but one of the sons stopped a phone call to San Francisco because the rule was when they gave out this specific code that San Francisco, the people out there were supposed to kill themselves too. So that one son actually saved people out there. So there was a few, just a very few people that defected and got out, and then those kids. And they had actually already betrayed Jim Jones because he had ordered them back because he was going to kill everybody, and they refused to come back. And so you've got defectors, but you don't have any real solid followers of Jim Jones that survived. Unless they stayed in San Francisco, there's a few out there.
A lot of those drank Kool-Aid did it because of the gun pointing at them.
Oh, there was absolutely. There was a lot of people. There was one person that I can't remember what his title was, but he was the one doing all the autopsies. He said he estimated at least 70% of the adults had marks on their back where they had been injected in the back. They had been held down and forced. But see, another coercive deal. He killed all the kids first. Now you're a parent. You're being told that the U.S. government is going to come in and slaughter you because somebody killed killed them on the airstrip. Your kids have been killed. You have nothing. You have no one and nothing. That's another manipulation. They were out of hope. So the few people that did take it weren't necessarily 100% followers either. So I look at that as 918 murders. Yeah. So, any more questions? You guys are probably getting tired of looking at me. Like, getting tired. Getting tired. You're like probably getting tired of messing with me. So, I do missing persons cases. I run those a lot in my blog and things. And I told some of these I'm about 3 steps or 10 steps, however it is, away from getting everything submitted to get my PI license. And it seems like every step you have to do 5 things to do 1. So it's either 3 or it's 10. I'm not sure. And then I'll get the test out. So I'm not worried about the testing because I'm a good test taker. But if I could ever get done with the application process, I'm like, I'm not a felon. Here's my fingerprints. You are my DNA. What do you want? Yeah, exactly. So exactly. Give me the paper. So thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.